Hey, what's up guys? This is the Super Saiyan Prodigy 1221 here. You can go and call me Andres or by my nickname Andy as well. It's been a little bit since I've uploaded, so a little bit of a quick announcement. I'm a little bit burned out from Dueling Book, to be honest, so that's why I haven't been grinding on the ladder like I was during the summer in Rated. And also, I'm in college right now, but I'll try to stick to uploading like a video once a week or so. And I'm really hoping for Master Duels to be good. I'm definitely going to invest some time and money. Hopefully the cards don't be too expensive though, because I am a college student, but we'll see how it turns out. If it turns out to be good as well, like maybe there's some tournaments for it and whatnot. But anyways, back to the focus of the video. Let's go ahead and talk about Ready Fusion. So this is a relatively new card that hasn't been out for too long from Dawn of Majesty. It's basically an instant fusion before vanilla monsters. Julio's been messing around with putting a borreload Savage Dragon as an alternative Omni Negate for Dragoon, since he feels like the Dragoon package may get touched this upcoming ban list. But I'll leave a link to his combo video in the description, since he deserves credit where credit is due. And I don't want to get too much in depth about that package, since he told me he's waiting for those cards to arrive in the mail because he mainly plays in remote duels, and he'll be able to showcase that package better than me. So I think it's really cool personally. It's just that the hard drawing the Ready Fusion is the issue, since you're taking up 3 extra deck slots to make that package work, and if you don't draw them, you're essentially having 3 dead cards in your extra deck. So that's only my quick opinion on it though. He was kind of the first one to make a popularized video about this Savage package. So if it turns out to be more consistent than I think, my hat's off to him for making it work, but for now, I've seen more people lately just play it to have a free special summon extender, basically just have a 1 of vanilla in your extra deck. So I'll be primarily talking about that card in that aspect. Also, I won't be talking about the Predaplant package. So basically, this package in a nutshell is that it's kind of like a tour guide in a way, where you normal summon it, but in this case, you have to discard a monster from your hand to the graveyard as cost, and then special summon out the Cobra, which has to be special summoned in order to add a fusion spell card from your deck to your hand. The main problem with this package is that it relies on you to be able to discard something good, and sometimes you may open up this with the Burning Abyss monster, is what I've kind of noticed when I do test hands where you just don't have a good discard at all. Because you're only really getting a decent discard if you're able to discard your Phantom Knight monsters. And then this also, hard drawing it really sucks, because how the hell are you going to summon this thing outside of maybe a Monster Reborn at best, but even then that's a little bit niche. So yeah, Julio was testing out this package as well, and I just didn't like it, which is why but he didn't like it, which is why he didn't show it off on his live streams. But with that being said, let's go in depth about Ready Fusion, just for the purpose of something out of vanilla. So starting off with the benefits, this card kind of functions as an e-telly. So let me go ahead and give you guys an example. I'm going to load up a duel in just 1 second. Alright, so here we are, going to showcase to you guys what I mean exactly. So you can essentially go into Cherubini without using up your normal summon, which is really good, because let's say you're trying to play around something like your opponent's hand traps. So you open up with this, making it look like you got nothing to work with. But let's go ahead and say, let's just pretend this is a trap. You'd really want to use this to as a body, but it's something to protect the Cherubini. And then, so you basically just made a Cherubini without using up your normal summon. You attempt to use the effect of Graph, but then they have Ash Blossom for you. Well, that's good because you haven't dedicated your normal summon yet. So you just go ahead and then go into your Rusty Bardiche from there, which is pretty good. And then let's say for this example, Ready Fusion is the only settable card you have to play around something like Gamma or Herald of the Orange Light. So what you go ahead and do is you start off, if you have to use your normal summon, use it. I'd rather not get my Shirabini hit by Gamma, because essentially I'm going to be bringing out a BA monster after that occurs, even if it resolves possibly. So I'm going to be bringing out kind of like a useless monster at that point, because Shirabini's not there to protect it, and it's going to be harder to link climb Rusty into it. So here your opponent may or may not want to use Gamma on it because they might think it's a Fog Blade or one of your other traps like a Wings or Sword, so that way you don't send it for cost in order to protect the Shirabini. So then you just do the standard of dumping Graph into the graveyard, and then since they see that you're protecting the Shirabini by sending a card, they won't Gamma it since they want to get good use out of the Gamma. They'll go ahead and instead I had this in my hand already, but instead choose to Ash Blossom it, in which case you can just go ahead and flip itself up, and your opponent fell for the bluff. So it's really good. It's a little bit niche, but it does come up in clutch, right? Because you really want to protect the Shirabini from stuff like Gamma or Herald of the Orange Light. And then in this scenario, let's just say, for example, you're trying to trigger your Torn Scales right here. Then you add back Stained Greaves, and then you try to trigger Torn Scales, but then they end up using Ghost Spell on you. Granted, it is a little bit, you kind of have to rely on having some extra extenders in hand, but it can work especially if you play Shade Brigadine as well. But yep, so you go ahead and end up making Instant Fusion, and then special summon out any other extender, could be like one of your Psychics or an E-Telly. Then go ahead and either go into like a Break Sword, special summon out your two guys, or maybe just go ahead and turn this into a Link Spider and go into Verte Anaconda. It's up to you, depending on how you want to approach this and what cards you're signing up for in your deck. But these are the 3 examples I've had come up on me lately through my playtesting with it. So those are just my general examples of stuff I've ran into. So let's go ahead and go back to the in-depth discussion. Alright, so back to talking about benefits. So I would recommend you run Ready Fusion as a 3-of, because it basically means you're playing 3 extra extenders in your deck and increases your probability of seeing one in your opening hand. Because really, to get your engine going, all you really need is like 1 Phantom Knight name and then 1 extender to go into your Shirabini, dump Graph, proceed from there, dump Rust, use your Rusty effect to dump another PK name, trigger Torn Scales, and then you're good to go. And then I just feel like you play it as a 3-of, let's say even if you don't, it's not your only extender, that's good, because then you can also play through hand traps, through the Graph effect I've talked about earlier. It also helps in that you're kind of blocking from seeing your potential Burning Abyss bricks, but you're just really playing an extender to help you do your plays that you wouldn't have been able to do if you hard drew your Burning Abyss bricks. And let me go ahead and show you guys example list of people who have been having good results with Ready Fusion. So first off is going to be a Dueling Book high rated player that goes by the name of Aura Luster. Let's see if this thing even loads. Yep. So he's featured a little bit. If you guys go ahead and go check out the DB Grinders channel. He's been a couple times on his channel with some of his Dueling Book replays. The latest one was where he beat Dragon Link, but he's fairly good with Phantom Knights. As you can see, he was a little bit higher rated earlier in the format, but now a lot of people, I guess maybe it's getting a little bit stale, I don't know. But he sent me his deck list, which is really nice, so shout out to you if you're watching this, thank you. But as you can see, he's been pretty successful lately with playing a 50 card deck version, and he is on the Dragoon, so it does help even more because he's playing more bricks in the deck than I am if you're playing, well, I guess not just me, but if you want to play a non-Dragoon build in general as well. And then as you can also see, not just him, you know, some of you guys might say like, okay, well that's just DB. Well, also if you guys go ahead and check out Team Bortles YouTube channel, they did an interview with a guy named Aaron McLennan, I want to say. Forgot his last name, but it starts with an M. But I'll go ahead and put that link down in the description below as well. And then as you guys can go ahead and see, he is also maxing out on the Ready Fusion as well. So that's what I'm saying, like I think 3 of is the way to go in my opinion. And that's what's been working out for everyone. He's also playing Dragoon just like Aura Luster, so it's helping him get an extender a lot of the time in order to get his engine going. And then I talked to Aura Luster actually a little bit personally when I asked him about the deck list, and he said that it really was really helpful and that he didn't really find the downside of having a vanilla monster take up an extra deck slot, as Ready Fusion just helps in general being able to make your extra deck monsters in the first place. But back to analyzing these decks though, they're surprisingly both 50 cards, but keep in mind that they're both playing Dragoon. And if you're playing with a build without Dragoon, it's probably going to be less than 50. They're both better than average players who've had success with it though, so that's why I'm kind of more inclined to try this out, the Ready Fusions, as opposed to the Pot of Prosperities that I've been messing around with lately. Actually, let's go ahead and talk about Pot of Prosperity as well. Pause this for just a second. Yeah, so I've been primarily playing with Pot of Prosperities in my deck for the past few weeks. You guys don't know. I'm gonna put this up. I had a deck profile last week with July_TCG. If you guys want to go ahead and check out my deck profile interview with him, it's up on his channel, alongside with the borreload Savage combo I was talking about earlier. This is what I ran at Jake Quincy's tournament about 2 weeks ago. And like the biggest downside that I was scared of when using Pot of Prosperity is that I could end up banishing extra deck cards that could be useful to me later on, such as my Nightmare package when I'm going up against a trap decks. And then the one other thing is that trap decks have been making a little bit of a comeback as of late. Like when I played against Altergeist 3 times in Jake Quincy's tournament recently, and those same players actually topped a UK Remote Duel Extravaganza as well. And then with Pack, he's been on Trap Burning Abyss lately as well, a little bit popularizing it. Because of that, I'm just mixed on Pot of Prosperity lately, as my banishes that I would usually do would be Access Code, the Nightmare package, Downer Magician, and the IP Masquerena, since my philosophy was that if I put up enough monster negates on my opening turn, I won't need those other cards to win me the game, since trap decks aren't seeing play right now. But since they've been showing up a little bit more recently, it's making me feel skeptical about it. Another thing is that, like with Ready Fusion, it kind of acts as a pseudo Pot of Prosperity, as a lot of the time with my Pot of Prosperity excavations, I'm getting an extender or a PK card to get my engine going, but Prosperity requires a little bit more extra deck costs. Meanwhile, Ready Fusion is only taking up 1 extra deck slot, because Pot of Prosperity requires 3 or 6 cards to choose from. And also Ready Fusion isn't that weak to hand traps as well, since Pot of Prosperity is vulnerable to hand traps such as Ash Blossom, which you'll get away with Pot of Prosperity game 1 because your opponent's going to be fearing the Gamma, so they don't go -2 in card advantage with the Cyframe Omega that may or may not be in your extra deck because they don't know what you're playing yet because you just activated the card. But games 2 and 3, they'll definitely want to ash you so you don't get to see your strong side deck hate against their deck. But another benefit if you choose to run Ready Fusion instead of Pot of Prosperity is that it'll make you less weak to side deck hate, such as Droll and Lockbird, as well as Lancia. You know, Droll stops you from being able to add cards from your deck to your hand. Lancia stops you from banishing period. So, granted, these cards have seen a decrease in popularity in the side deck, which is why I was running Pot of Prosperity earlier. but it's still something to take a note of, as adding a card with Prosperity to get an extender to then be punished with draw hurts you a lot, as you rely on searching through your Phantom Knight card effects in order to trigger your Torn Scales in the graveyard. And then also your them hitting you with Lancia before your main phase hurts, as Prosperity becomes dead for a turn. So Ready Fusion really does help in dodging those side deck hate cards, which is a really nice benefit. Ready Fusion is also a little bit harder to negate in general. Besides the hand traps I mentioned with Ash Blossom earlier, it requires your opponent to have some kind of spell negation, which they probably won't waste on a Ready Fusion, like a Solemn Judgment, or some kind of Omni negation, like a borreload Savage Dragon, which they won't waste on that. But it also helps play under an opponent's potential Gozen match, but like Gozen match isn't too bad of a floodgate for Phantom Knights, as all of your Phantom Knight cards are Dark Attribute, as well as the boss monsters such as Rusty Bardish, your Dragoon, Redoer, Evil Swarm Nightmare, just as examples. But the extenders like your Psychic monsters, oh fuck, sorry about that. Your Junk Forwards, they're not dark, which can be important if those are your only extenders in hand to work with to establish some kind of board presence. So it's just a minor benefit, but something to keep in mind. Another minor benefit is that you can send this for cost with Forbidden Droplet. That way you have one less card you have to pay for cost to negate your opponent's board, and you can still get a free special summon from your extra deck if they don't respond to it. So it's really good, because let's say you instead had a Psychic monster in Junk Forward maybe in order to have to pay cost with droplets. Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore, because now you got Ready Fusion to help you out with that, and then you still go plus an advantage, because you essentially still keep the card there, because you're not really paying any downside since you send it for cost with droplets. But speaking of downsides, let's move on to the cons of Ready Fusion. So some of the downsides with this card is that you can hard open multiple, making one of them dead. It doesn't happen very often, as your chance of opening 2 or 3 are low. I go and pull up the statistics for you guys. So then let's see how probable it is for you to open up a Ready Fusion period in your hand. So 31%, that's not bad. If you cut down your deck size even lower, let's say maybe you're really into 40 cards, you see it 1/3 of the time as well. And then let's see for the probability of if you might need to see, you want to see 2, it's really low. It's only 3% chance. So I would say the probability of you having to play a lot more of them in your deck, even though hard opening 2 of them can be a brick, it's only going to happen like 3% of the time according to statistics, right? You can get screwed sometimes, but like I said, you really shouldn't majority of the time. Also, this is another reason why I don't think you should be playing 2 vanilla monsters in your extra deck, just to compensate for this event, for like the likelihood of you to hard open 2 Ready Fusions. Like maybe you're thinking like, okay, I'll put in an instant fusion and I'll put in another vanilla just to compensate for the probability that I might open up a Ready Fusion and an instant fusion. Well, in this case, you only have like a 3% chance of it actually happening. So I wouldn't put in 2 vanilla extra deck monsters just for the off chance you might have the minor, like very low probability that you open up 2 of them. You're pretty much sacrificing more extra deck utility just to offset that low situational chance from happening, basically. And you're just relying even more on potentially hard drawing your Ready Fusion as well. Which is another small downside of Ready Fusion, actually, is that if you don't draw Ready Fusion at all, you kind of have a dead extra deck slot. So similar to what I was saying about borreload Savage Dragon package earlier, but if you hard open your normal extenders like your Psychics, it's not too bad of a downside. You're still going to get your engine going. You also have to dedicate an extra deck slot to make this card work, which is kind of tough to choose sometimes. An example would be my extra deck is pretty much the same in this build, other than I took out the IP Masquerena. If you guys notice, it's pretty much the same deck list I used at Jake Quincy's tournament, just with some minor changes. And the reason for that I had IP Masquerena in the first play was because in case if someone dropped Contact C against me, I'd usually be able to get 2 level 3s on board, in which case I can still set up an IP Masquerena, have a monster on field for a Nightmare Unicorn play. But I took out the IP Masquerena as some people assume I might be on Dragoon through my testing, because me busting out a Time Thief or Doer or Evil Storm Nightmare kind of gave them the impression that I hard opened Red Eyes Fusion. So it's one of those cases where if you want to take advantage of Ready Fusion, you gotta boil it down to which extra deck card you don't mind giving up. Kind of like with Pot of Prosperity when you have to banish for cost. Another downside is that you can hard draw into another Ready Fusion when you already got out your vanilla earlier. When you draw for turn, such as you started off the duel, your opponent tries to break your board. They kind of break it, but then you end up hard drawing it for turn. The thing though is that you kind of already run into this issue as well, especially if you still got your Dragoon bricks in your deck when your Verte and Akana effect got negated. So it's kind of the same situation with that, but in this case you can just use the dead Ready Fusion as discard fodder for your Torn Scales or Droplets, similar to how maybe you sent Red Eyes Fusion for cost, but now you're top decking a Dragoon brick and then you're just trying to make some kind of use out of it. Another downside is that you can't attack with the monster that you bring out with Ready Fusion, so it's not as versatile as your other extenders like Junk Forward, the Dangerous Snake, or E-Telly, or even a hard drawn Burning Abyss monster to try to play around things like a Heretic Seal of Spears or an IP Masquerena, to try to bait out their effects by going into the battle phase. But you kind of already run these extenders anyway to accomplish that goal that I just mentioned earlier, so it's not that big of a downside. The life point cost isn't that bad either. A lot of decks, if they're able to OTK you, that may break your board, are going to be putting out 8,000 damage anyways through something like an Axis Kotakra or a Borreload Dragon. So it's not that big of a downside. Another downside is that it's vulnerable to things like Imperial Order, which some decks, main deck like Tri-Brigade is an example. Same thing with Anti-Spell as well. Imperial Order is a 1-of though, so if they have it, they have it. Most of the Phantom Knight deck is full of like monsters and trap cards though, and most meta decks rely on spell cards, so Imperial Order isn't something to run into very often. Dragon Link has a lot of spell cards they rely on. Prank Kids have a lot of spell cards they rely on as well. And also, less people have been citing an Anti-Spell as well. More so I've been switching to Solemn Judgment, so it's not something that I'd be too worried about. Overall though, Ready Fusion is the most versatile extender for Phantom Knights. It's easier to summon than your other level 3 extenders, since some of them require you to control a level 3 monster, like your Psychics for example, which you may or may not have in certain situations mid-combo with just Cherubini on field, depending on how much you want to commit to the board to play around Nibiru. Like maybe you want to get out Rusty on your 5th summon, so that way you at least got it out of your extra deck so you can bring it back later with one of your traps. But Ready Fusion can give you a good Dark extender, since it's more flexible than the regular Dark extender this deck plays, which is Kagamucha Knight, since Kagamucha Knight can be a bit bricky if you run more than 2, and there's the minor chance you can open up 2 of them, and it has to special summon itself as a monster effect which is vulnerable to negation, like an Appaloosa Tri-Brigade likes to turbo out. You can also use a Wind extender. I saw Aura Luster run a Wind extender in his DB Grinder feature match that he had in high rated. I think he was running the Speedroid engine at that time, so he could try to unbrick the Taketon board, but I kind of find it more flexible to use it as a Dark attribute vanilla, so you can make it into Rusty if you are locked into Dark monsters, like with Break Swords effects, and just overall if you're trying to just bluff your opponent that you have a good card to send in place of Cherubini to protect it from destruction, like Herald of the Orange Light or Cyframe Gamma. But overall, it's just very flexible compared to the other extenders that we have for the Phantom Knights deck and a safer alternative to get an extender than Pot of Prosperities. I'm more than likely going to try out Ready Fusions if a DB tournament occurs this month and MBT's Chalice Line monthly tournament, as long as it doesn't break down again like he was having issues last month, since I should be playing that one. But also, there's been a bit of a resurgence of trap decks lately that I mentioned before, so I'm a little bit skeptical of banishing my back row hate extra deck cards lately. So there's that. Remember that you can check out Julio's video as well, going over the borreload Savage Dragon with Ready Fusion and Phantom Knights in the description below. But yeah, I think I got out everything that I wanted to say. Guys, comment down below if you guys think I missed anything or wanted to ask me a question, point out maybe something I missed, or have a different opinion on the card, you know. You're entitled to your own opinion, you know. Feel free to disagree or agree with me, you know. I love learning new things about the deck. You know, helps make me be better as a player. So I hope this video helped you become a better player as well. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys have a nice day. Peace.